have we 99%ers had a week at Occupy. And to tell you about it, we ran our boys and girls from New York to Washington and from Tampa to LA. OWS Week is here to tell y'all in 3 parts. 1, don't suppress the OWS tucks into Occupy our food supply. A 2-part project of beautification and vegetable gardening and looks over the anti-suppression demos. 2, Rage Against the Machine follows in the footsteps of the shutdown of the corporation's protests. 3, AIPAC Beware, 99%ers home in on AIPAC to give it a piece of their minds. And our interview with the man with the golden tongue.
How about we play some of their word games? Stop calling it taxing the rich. Call it taking back our stolen property.
F27. Call to Action for Food Justice by Rainforest Action Network, and join in solidarity by Occupy locations across the U.S., as well as food justice workers, consumers, and farmers.
Do you think the 1% have anything to do with Monsanto and the...
They definitely do. It was actually Bill Gates has actually put a lot of money into Monsanto. He's one of the biggest shareholders of Monsanto.
Occupy Our Food Supply flows with a broad-based movement, global in scope, local in action. Corporate control of our food system has led to dire consequences on family farmers, soil fertility, ecosystems, and human health. It's time for a change.
Michelle Obama has an organic garden at the White House.
Michelle Obama has an organic garden at the White House.
The Obama administration is embracing GMOs in the United States.
The Obama administration is embracing GMOs in the United States.
And around the world.
And around the world.
We're going to go to Zuccotti Park right now.
We're going to go to Zuccotti Park right now.
Have a seed swap.
Have a seed swap.
And share our seeds.
And share our seeds.
We have banners if you like.
We have banners if you like.
So let's go to Zuccotti Park.
F27 actions included reclaiming vacant lots to create community gardens, creating seed exchanges, exposing genetically engineered ingredients, resisting megastores and industrial giants, which control our food supply. Occupy groups across the country are reaching out to farm workers who face poverty wages and daily violations of basic rights to put food on American plates. Formation of these coalitions is a positive sign for the movement. One story is the fight between a giant supermarket corporation and a coalition in the Florida tomato industry. The coalition of Immokalee workers appeared at Occupy Tampa to discuss their activism and their hunger strike planned for March 5th to 10th.
Todo lo que hemos logrado, todo lo que hemos luchado por años con diferentes personas que nos han apoyado, todo está en riesgo.
But all that we've achieved, all that we've fought for years and years, all of it is under threat.
Está en riesgo que un día se pierde. ¿Por qué? Porque hay supermercados todavía que no quieren participar en el acuerdo.
It's under threat because we could lose all of it as a result of supermarkets who are unwilling to work with us.
Their struggle and corporate control of the food supply makes each of us ask, can we stand by the food we eat from farm to fork? F28. Don't suppress OWS. Another day of action based on the simple fact that American society will worsen if the ruling elite succeeds in extinguishing the Occupy movement. Many celebrities joined the 99%ers across the country to reboot Occupy, to take a stand against suppression of a populist movement in which people from all walks of life came together to occupy public space across the U.S. A movement which stood up to vicious police violence, busted the rules of protest as usual, and built community. The country and the world took notice of the brave protesters trying to eliminate a new path and were energized by the American autumn. But the state had a different take on it. Corporate-controlled media ridiculed, distorted, and demonized the protests, even as the message of the occupiers became a beacon of hope and a force to be reckoned with. Political discourse shifted, hidden issues of corporate control were dragged into the light. Those in power noticed the potential of the movement and reacted swiftly, brutally, to peaceful assemblers supposedly protected by the U.S. Constitution with planned violence and repression, morally shameful, legally and politically illegitimate. The F28 gatherings across the nation illuminate a movement facing a true crossroads. Sharp questions arise. Will the state succeed in dispersing its citizens, marginalizing them, co-opting them? Or will Occupy rebound and come back full force for an American spring?
es Elvin Pérez, soy miembro de la coalición de trabajadores de Immokalee. Somos una organización basada sin fines de lucros, una organización donde estamos para defender nuestros derechos como trabajador.
My name is Elvin Perez. I'm a member of the Coalition of Immokalee Workers. We are a community organization of farm workers working to protect our rights in the fields.
Immokalee es una comunidad que tiene diferentes orígenes, desde hasta guatemaltecos, mexicanos y haitianos. Una comunidad donde trabajamos todos los días en el tomate.
The coalition is comprised of workers from various origins, from Guatemala, Mexico, and Haiti. We are workers who work in primarily the tomato fields.
Nos organizamos para eliminar todas estas malas condiciones que enfrentamos a cada día en nuestro lugar de trabajo. Realmente en nuestro lugar de trabajo no tenemos ningún derecho, ni el derecho a tomar agua, ni el derecho a descansar, no hay ni baños. Entonces estamos luchando para que nuestros derechos se respeten como trabajador.
We are working to make sure that our rights are respected in the fields. Essentially, in our work, we don't have any rights. We don't have the rights to rest, for shade, or even bathrooms on the property. And so we're working to defend those rights.
Piscamos tomate por cubeta, donde nos pagan 50 centavos por cada cubeta que piscamos al día.
We are paid by the piece rate. We work by bucket and are paid just 50 cents for every bucket that we pick.
Y enfrentando lo que es los pesticidas, enfrentando la alta temperatura que es aquí en la Florida.
And we confront pesticides. We confront the enormous temperatures that exist here in Florida.
Hay casos más extremos como la esclavitud, que se han visto 9 casos de esclavitud, donde 6 casos ha estado la coalición para descubrir los casos y se han liberado más de 1,200 trabajadores.
And we confront even more extreme cases, conditions like modern-day slavery. The Coalition of Immokalee Workers has been directly a part of investigating 6 cases that led to the release of more than 1,200 workers.
Entonces nos ponemos a pensar realmente de dónde vienen todos estos problemas, quiénes son los que tienen el poder o quiénes son los que se benefician de nuestro sudor a cada día.
And so we began to think as workers about why we're in this situation. Who is it who's benefiting from our sweat every day?
¿Por qué tenemos que enfrentar lo que es esclavitud? ¿Por qué las mujeres tienen que enfrentar el acoso sexual? ¿Por qué no tenemos voz ni derecho en nuestro lugar de trabajo?
Why is it that we confront slavery? Why is it that women have to deal with sexual abuse? Why is it that we don't have rights or even a voice in our workplace?
Entonces hicimos una campaña. Realmente inició lo que es la campaña por comida justa.
And that's why we started a campaign, the Campaign for Fair Food.
Iniciamos contra las grandes corporaciones, realmente que ellos nos dimos cuenta que ellos tienen todo el poder para cambiar esas condiciones que vivimos a cada día en nuestro lugar de trabajo.
We began asking large corporations to work with us because we realized that it was these enormous corporations who have the power to change the reality that we face day in and day out.
Fuimos contra Taco Bell en el 2001, pidiendo lo que es 1 centavo más por cada libra de tomate, un código de conducta que realmente hace valorar nuestros derechos y que las mujeres no enfrenten lo que es el acoso sexual. Realmente también cero tolerancia a la esclavitud.
We launched our campaign against Taco Bell in 2001, asking that they do 3 things. They pay a penny more per pound of every bucket of tomatoes they pick, that they agree to condition their purchasing on a code of conduct that guarantees 0 tolerance for modern-day slavery and 0 tolerance for sexual abuse, and that they guarantee workers a right to a voice in the fields.
Entonces luchamos 4 años contra ellos pidiendo esas demandas. Hicimos protestas, marchas, huelgas de hambre y giras. Pero no andábamos solos, no estábamos solo luchando, sino que teníamos el apoyo de estudiantes, de gente de fe, gente de iglesias.
Our struggle with them lasted for 4 years, and we did marches, tours, protests, even a hunger strike. But we weren't alone in this. We had the support of students, of people of faith, of community members.
Wednesday, F-29, was a national day of protest called originally by Occupy Portland to shut down the corporations, mainly corporate members of the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. Heeding Portland's call, Occupy groups in 70 cities targeted ALEC's corporate clients, including ExxonMobil, BP, Monsanto, Walmart, Bank of America, Pfizer, Wells Fargo, and Johnson & Johnson. A march about 1,000 strong closed the rainy streets of downtown Portland as protesters chanted on the doorsteps of ALEC members, seeking to spread the word about ALEC's efforts to erode American democracy, undermine workers' rights in public education, obstruct efforts to address climate change, pursue destructive agricultural practices, and fuel the prison industrial complex. Portland's action was joined in solidarity across the country. Action in New York City's heavy freezing rain included a teach-in in Bryant Park explaining the basics of the mortgage crisis and too-big-to-fail banks. Marchers moved from corporation to corporation and attempted to rally outside the heavily barricaded Bank of America Tower, guarded by the NYPD. Did the Occupy movement really think it could permanently shut down massive corporations on F-29? No, the day's actions were aimed at disrupting business as usual and focusing attention on LAEC, a group which prefers not spotlight on its powerful control of elected representatives.
I'm not normally the guy who brings you numbers. I bring you bitching. But in the interest of proof, here are some numbers to explain why the 99% are standing up in New York and Denver and D.C. and San Francisco and London, Boston, Montreal and Madison and about 2,000 other cities around the globe. In the 1970s, the top 1% took in 8 to 9% of America's total annual income. Today, they suck in 23.5%, according to truthout.org. 10% of Americans devour almost 50% of all wages, which is greater than any year since 1917, according to Professor Emmanuel Saez at Berkeley. Do you have any idea how long ago that was, 1917? They were still using expressions like she's the bee's knees and 74 of the richest people in the U.S. get paid $10 million a week. Not 74%, 74 of the richest Americans, which taken together is as much as 19 million of the lowest paid people in America. That's from the Huffington Post. Net worth of the richest Americans is $1.5 trillion, more than the combined net worth of the poorest 50% of the entire population, which is 155 million people combined. That's from truthout.org. The top 1% of the population owns 70% of all assets, an all-time record according to David DeGraw. The top 1% also have over 85% of the world's biggest assholes, according to me. But according to Fox News, the bottom 50% of this country is so you can see it's all in the numbers. The wealth of this country is being increasingly pulled to a very few individuals at the top. And as we know from simple physics, things that are incredibly top-heavy collapse. All you have to do is think back to the 2003 Oscars when James Gandolfini rode on Natalie Portman's shoulders down the red carpet. The award show was ultimately canceled so that construction crews could dig Portman out of the pavement. And for those of you who argue that it benefits America to have hugely successful corporations, you do understand they aren't going to stay here once they've eaten everything. I think Dylan Ratigan put it best on MSNBC when he said America is being extracted, while we all sit around distracted by petty political squabbling and celebrity nonsense. America's resources are being sucked out of it like a ping pong ball into a Thai ladyboy. And it's happening to a lot of other countries too, because corporations and those who run them have no moral code or allegiance outside of money. They never think they should behave a certain way because it's good for the country or good for the people. They don't say the Pledge of Allegiance before they lay off 10,000 workers or eat apple pie before purchasing 100,000 acres in Utah to clear cut. They don't have a big foam hand that says USA is #1 on it. And if they do, it says Dubai is #1 on the reverse side in case they need to pick up and move at a moment's notice. The ultra-rich in Mexico don't have sombreros that say Mexico rocks, and the corporations in England don't wear t-shirts that say God save the Queen. Instead, they say God save the green. And for those of you now thinking, but their money isn't green, you, I had to make the joke work, alright? God save the pinky purple bits of paper doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? We have created absolute monsters that are sucking all remaining wealth and resources from our land. Some of them don't even create anything. They just suck and suck and suck, like Eddie Murphy movies. These corporations haven't been good in any way since the late 1980s, like Eddie Murphy. So at least think about these facts when the media is telling you how furious you should be that the Occupy Wall Street protesters in your area are holding up a big sign with a curse word in it. Oh, God forbid!
A major action this week was Occupy AIPAC, initiated by Code Pink, with participation from over 130 organizations, including representatives from various OWS locations. The American Israel Public Affairs Committee is one of the most powerful lobby organizations in the US, and their annual policy conference was held this week in Washington, D.C. Hundreds of activists converged on D.C. to highlight AIPAC's disastrous influence on US foreign policy and democracy. March 4th to March 6th saw several coordinated actions rejecting AIPAC's push for war on Iran and insisting on respect for Palestinian rights. Street protests held outside AIPAC meeting places and the White House included signature OWS puppetry and speakers from different factions seeking to draw attention to the dangerous role of AIPAC as a special interest lobby with a stranglehold on US policies. On Monday, an AIPAC conference panel on Iran featuring Congresswoman Elena Ross-Lehtinen and Israeli Ambassador Jeremy Issacharoff was mic-checked by Occupy activists for pushing American support for an attack on Iran. One activist was violently attacked by an AIPAC member. Occupiers stood on chairs chanting "Don't bomb Iran" as the AIPAC crowd tried to drown out their valiant voices. On Tuesday, March 6th, during Senator Carl Levin's address to AIPAC, OWS and Code Pink activists unfurled a large "Don't Bomb Iran" banner and shouted "Don't bomb Iran, equal rights for Palestinians." And as a bow to AIPAC's conference theme of shared values, nonviolence is a shared value. Bottom line of this OWS action: AIPAC is a de facto agent for a foreign government and influences US policy out of all proportion to the number of Americans who are supporters. A small group having such disproportionate power hurts everyone. An essential starting point for averting a catastrophic war with Iran and finally solving the Israel-Palestine conflict is to break AIPAC's grip on US policy.
Something I hear a lot from right-wingers, whether it be a friend of mine or Herman Cain or Mumra, something I hear is, why don't protesters stop complaining and just work hard? I believe in hard work. Why don't people just shut up and work hard? And here's the thing they seem to be overlooking. These people are working hard. Most Americans are working really hard. There's a lot of hard-working janitors and teachers, nurses and cashiers, secretaries and fluffers, librarians and sheet metal cutters, sound technicians and lab technicians, blackjack dealers and drug dealers, bodega rat chasers and cake bakers, cable repairmen, naval airmen, and wax-your-back hair men. And every one of them is working really hard, and most aren't making much money and aren't living easy lives. Hard work only equals hundreds of thousands of dollars in a few select professions. The point is, we, as a wealthy country, should have a society where if you work hard in any profession, you can have a happy life. We have the resources. They're all right here in front of us. So I don't care if you have the worst job in the world. I don't care if your job is cleaning turds out of the corner of the turd factory. If you work full time, you should be able to afford to feed and clothe your kids. First of all, it's the moral thing to do. And secondly, with the size of our kids, none of us want to see them half clothed. None of us want to see a 10-year-old boy's bouncing down, up and down on a sweaty summer day. Can't we get together as a country and buy that boy some pasties? You know, a set of shiny new nipple tassels. And I realize Bill O'Reilly will call them socialist nipple tassels, but who gives a I'd rather have socialist nipple tassels than a capitalist boy in my face, wouldn't you? And that's what the Occupy movement is about. Kinda. Occupy Wall Street's not saying people shouldn't work. It's saying if people work hard in whatever profession they choose, the game shouldn't be rigged against them so that their pension is circumcised a year before they retire in order to give the CEO a bigger, thicker, longer-lasting bonus. Enough with the enormous throbbing bonuses. They're unseemly.